Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CoachCon podcast. So, due to everything from scheduling to a couple of guests needing to change time slots and that kind of thing, I promised you guys that we would do an episode of this every Monday. Today is a Monday, so a podcast episode needs doing. So, it is another solo episode, but it's going to be a little bit different to the last one. So, it's going to be a little mix of a few hard truths that I had to learn, that some of my clients have had to learn. It's going to be mentioned on one of my clients as well, in terms of a particular win that it was more than a win. It's incredible life change, to be quite honest, that I've found very inspiring, that I'm sure you guys are going to find very inspiring as well. And a little bit of a Q&A as well. Some questions that I've kind of been asked regularly, either just sort of on Instagram on Q&As or just in passing, or just general conversation inside the DMs on Instagram, that kind of thing. It's just a few regular things I get asked there. I think it's pretty useful just in terms of being able to talk about a little bit more. So got my notes in front of us. We're going a little bit rogue, probably jump about a little bit, but we'll see how we get on. So getting into some of the hard truths that I had to learn that are worth sharing. So one is you're not stuck, you're comfortable. And what do I mean by that? So it's not necessarily the thing of being lazy. It's not being the thing of being someone that is just sat doing nothing all day. It's the thing of where you maybe work full time, you maybe not completely happy in yourself, you know, you could be in better shape, you know, you're maybe not hitting your potential, you're not out and out depressed by it, but you're just kind of comfortable in it. And with that, we run the risk of, when we're getting a lot older, a lot further down the line in life, that we look back and wish we'd made a little bit more effort. So a lot of people aren't even trapped necessarily. You know, I'm not here to kind of talk about that. It's more that they're just cushioned. They're not happy but comfortable enough to stay the same, even though they might be wanting a little bit more. So even if you're feeling maybe a little bit hurt, you may be knowing that you could be in better shape, you could be looking a little bit better, for example, which was always the thing with myself. You just maybe weren't feeling the hurt enough. And what do I mean by that? So you maybe not had something where, you know, God forbid, you maybe had some sort of health warning, something like that. You maybe avoided getting things like, you know, getting your organs checked out, maybe, you know, getting diabetes checked for, things like that. You might have avoided blood work, things like that, because you maybe know you might have some problems, but you don't actually want to know for sure, which would then force change from a medical standpoint. So maybe, as I say, you maybe hate your body, your job, you struggle with your energy levels, you kind of, even if you have a day off work, you may be just someone that's scrolling, you're not really doing anything. But maybe you don't hate those things enough, because if you did, you would elicit change. You would go in terms of the change. So discomfort is the entry fee for growth. If your life is too soft, though, nothing will change. So it's very much a thing of stop being comfortable. There was a time not too long ago where I literally had 5 jobs on the go. So I was doing some work for Awesome Supplements, who are awesome, Ben Coomber's firm. Love doing that, a little bit of R&D work for them, research and development. I was then online coaching, I was PTing, I was working a gym job as well, and I was also doing some work for GMC coaching as well, doing a little bit of coaching in the background for Keegan and the guys there. So that was me, 5 jobs on the go at one time, trying to learn as much as I could in the industry, trying to learn from people that knew more than me, so guys like Keegan, Ben, so on, that I could learn from, implement, and move forward. So yeah, it was work. Yeah, it was learning. Yes, it was 70-hour weeks. Yes, I distinctly remember, you know, not pretty much being off my phone from a work standpoint, because, as I say, I was dealing with things on Awesome social media side, and then it could be things like, as I say, doing the R&D for them as well. And then, as I say, obviously my own coaching, the coaching for Keegan, then the gym job as well. So yes, that was uncomfortable. Yes, it was difficult. Yes, I was very tired. Yes, incredibly long days. However, that has now paid off a little bit more down the line. So second myth, or uncomfortable truth, if you like, that again, I had to learn, and clients and such have learned from: motivation is a myth. You just may be a little bit addicted to low standards. Now, that might sound like the typical cliche rubbish, things like that, but I'm going to break it down and explain it. So motivation isn't what gets you results. Something that I learned from a couple of different coaches. Most recently, my coach Billy, he talks a lot about standards. And when I first kind of heard that, even from him, the penny kind dropped. I'd heard it before, but then hearing it from him, like, standards, what do you mean standards? It's motivation, it's doing the work. Standards are just things that you set yourself each day that need to get done. So, for example, for me at the moment, use myself personally, I'm very much, for example, want to hit a podcast every Monday, line guests up, I line my questions up, put a lot of work into that. I want to make sure that I'm present as well for the people that matter to me. So, a very select bunch of friends. Obviously, importantly as well, I want to be there for clients. I want to be there, obviously, family. But on top of that, I make sure that I'm hitting my steps every day. At the moment, we're around 10 to 12,000 a day as an average. So, it's important that every day I hit somewhere between that number. It's then the thing of I'm hitting weights 4 times a week and aiming for 2 hours of cardio per week as well. So at the moment, that's pretty much split into playing football on a Wednesday and then 2 to 3 Stairmaster sessions, basically just to try and hit that 2 hours in total. So those are standards that are set. On top of that, there's obviously the nutrition standards as well. So calories at the moment are around the 2,000 to 2,200 mark, entering a little bit of a deficit at the moment just to kind of tidy up a little bit more, drop some more body fat. So again, standard every day. Protein in with that as well. So again, around 200 grams per day of that. Again, that is like standard. That is like a non-negotiable things I need to do on top of obviously getting 8 hours of sleep per night. Yeah, sleep isn't always guaranteed, but I always give myself the best chance. For example, things like going to bed pretty much at the same time every night, and then obviously setting wake times, things like that in terms of circadian rhythm. So again, that is like a standard that I very much hold myself to. So you never need to feel ready. It's people have this idea that you suddenly get this thing of right, I'm ready to do this thing, but yes, you will get a little bit of that. So for me, particularly over the last few weeks, I've very much wanted to tighten up. Again, just in terms of like my own goals. So in terms of obviously the nutrition, calories have been pulled down a little bit more. Cardio's gone up. Steps remain the same. I want a little bit more for myself, and I did feel ready for that. And me and Billy had that conversation where I was like, yeah, I want to push on a little bit more. I want to potentially look at doing another photo shoot at the back end of this year, maybe get some clients involved with that as well. I haven't even told them about it yet, but it's on here. But, these kind of things that I've got in mind. And there's been a little bit of that motivation, like getting the new meal plan through, following the new cardio, like pushing myself in the new train, things like that. But also there's been the thing of even like today, getting up around 5:30, where I just thought, I really don't want to do this. I don't want to go to, the gym and do steps. Oh, I've got my cardio to do tonight. I'm doing a spin class tonight, 45 minutes. So that's going to chip off some of the 2 hours that I have to do over the week. But yeah, it was a thing of, oh shit, I've got spin tonight. Oh, I've got my weights to do. Oh, I'm doing up at a day. That initial feeling sorry for myself start the day. By the time you're into the day, that's already been done. So at the moment, I've cleared 10,593 steps. I've got my cardio at night. Weights have also been done. That was a good 45-minute session at Ultraflex, which I thoroughly enjoyed. So again, the motivation this morning wasn't there when I had to, I say had to, that's the other thing. We get to do these things, we get to walk the gym or, drive to the gym, whatever it is. We get to be able to choose what we want to eat. And as I say, yes, there's obviously the cost of living, things like that. Stuff has gone up. But with that, so have your takeaways and everything like that. In terms of getting like a healthy shop and get yourself set up for the week, that is going to serve you and be way cheaper than doing a bit of a healthy shop and then just ruining yourself with takeaways, which I do see a lot. And people often come out with the thing of the finances are an excuse in terms of eating right, things like that. You add up what a Domino's costs and then add up what a week's worth of breakfasts of your Greek yogurt and, your berries and all that will add up to it. It's not even worth an argument, to be fair. So a lot of the time as well, you're not tired. It's your standards are maybe just a little bit low. So you accept mood swings, you skip sessions, accept your excuses, you listen to excuses. If you get up, you feel a bit tired, maybe I shouldn't go today. One thing that I learned off a chap, Daniel Dargan, who some of you may have heard of, he once said, even if you are, paraphrasing the guy a little bit, but even if you go to the gym, you may be tired, you don't want to train, so on, maybe just say, right, let's just have a couple of sets and see how I feel. And 99 times out of 100, you'll do your 2 sets and go, oh, yeah, actually, I'm all right. I'm going to do my session. And you'll be fine. Don't get me wrong. Maybe there's been one time that I remember within the last couple of years where I did that. And I literally did a couple of sets and I was like, no, like I am done. But if I'd listened to all the times where I was tired, I thought, oh, not today. I don't want to train. Don't want to listen to the alarm. I want a bit more time in bed, whatever it is. I wouldn't have done the things that I've done within the last 12 months or so. So 2 Great North runs, ultramarathon, super sprint triathlon, all those things. Like none of those would have been done, photo shoot, body transformation, like, you know, whatever it is, none of that would have been done. So it's the thing is, one example that I like to think of sometimes is if brushing your teeth was optional like your trainers, that's the difference between you try and you just do. You brush your teeth every day, don't you? You know, 2 or 3 times a day, whatever. Like, why can't you apply that with your steps, your train, your standards, your sleep? You know, these are the things that move us forward and separate you from being that guy that's doing well, working on themselves, the self-development, doing well, and the guy that's just sitting in bed, scrolling, having the extra hours in bed, being fat, lazy, and feeling sorry for themselves. Simple as that. And I know what that's like. And the sooner you stop listening to that little voice in your head almost and actually get up and start doing the work is the day things change for you, because I'm proof of that. So am I. Several of my clients as well that have done exceptionally well this, even in the last few months. So moving on, your environment is more of a problem sometimes than you plan. So what do I mean by that? I've always been pretty fortunate to be surrounded by some decent people. Some of them haven't been so decent, you know, male and female relationships, that kind of thing. Not dwelling on that too much, but again, relationships and certain people, it's sometimes it is your mates that are messing things up for yourself. And with that, it's the thing of, you know, people might want you out every weekend drinking, spoiling yourself, takeaways, so on. And I'm not saying that you need to cut all those people off entirely, but you need to lessen the time that you spend with them. It can go the other way. It can be the mate that's still fat, lazy, out of shape, feeling sorry for themselves in a job that they hate, not working on themselves, brings people down. It could be that side of things as well. And I know clients that have had those mates, and it's a thing of they might be doing well, working on themselves, and they might even have a mate that's like, oh yeah, great. But that person could be completely sapping their energy and struggling and just not working on themselves at all and wishing that they could do that, but they've never put the work in for everything from being lazy to just, again, feeling sorry for themselves, low standards, things like that. You can't out-train a toxic environment. And that could be in a relationship. You know, I've very much learned that in my past, that, you know, if you've got a bad home life, things going on, people that you kind of affiliate with, surround yourself with, then you're not going to be able to out-train or out-diet that. You know, there's no even supplements that are going to dig you out of that. You know, you need, if everyone around you or your little close circle, if there's only a few of you, which is fine, but in that close circle, if all those people are kind of average and just sort of staying in the lane, not really working on themselves, not really trying to better themselves in terms of, you know, career, finance, business, money, gym, whatever it might be, or all of those things, if not just one of them, then that is going to be you as well. You're very much a product of your environment. You're either grow together, like a lot of, you know, my pals have done. We've all kind of done our different things, you know, whether it's been work for some of them, it's been gym and work. Sometimes it's been finances, you know, things like that. They've all leveled up in a way, and that is what's important. You either kind of grow together, or you need to learn to spend less time with people that aren't moving forward or moving in your direction. And I do believe that success is very much a ceiling of who you surround yourself with. If you, I'm not, you know, I use this term loosely, upgrade, you know, you're either grow together, or maybe it's you do end up knocking about with people that are maybe on that path of growth that you want to be on, or you're currently already on. So last one of these hard truths, I don't even like how that sounds, to be fair. It sounds a bit, you know, a bit of a knob saying hard truth, but it needs to be said. The last one I'm going to share and dive into is you don't need more information, you need some accountability in action. So what do I mean by that? I fell into this trap, and don't get me wrong, I love my self-help books, I love my self-development. There's something you can take from a lot of these books. Relentless by Tim Grover, absolutely love that. I'm not a super huge fan, but even The Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett, he's done very well. He knows his stuff. Like, I do take things still from him. And loads of different books. So even things like Atomic Habits, James Clear, fantastic, great read. However, if you're just spending all your time buried in these books, as great as they are, that's not actually going to move you forward. The reading isn't doing the work. The reading isn't me coming on this podcast trying to help, trying to better myself, to get feedback, to learn what I need to do to improve, things like that. That is not doing the work. It's the same. You might listen to podcasts, like this one, but if you listen to all these, listen to all these episodes I've done so far in a day, yeah, that's great, helps my views, fantastic. However, you've took all that information on, but is anything actually being implemented in that day? No. Is it the thing of where you burn yourself out listening to me, listening to your self-development, you read and everything like that, and then do you actually implement on the back of that? So a lot of the time it's best to just do these things in little bursts. That's why my podcasts have very much tried to be under an hour. You can take a good bit of information in that hour, but if I rattle on, or me and guests rattle on for 3 hours at you, you're probably not even going to listen to it in one go. You're probably going to get a little bit lost off. Your phone might not keep your place, things like that. And then, are you really actually taking anything on? Are you actually implementing anything? A lot of folks, they already know what to do. You just don't do it consistently. There's people that I know that they actually know how to train. They maybe worked with a coach before, they maybe had PT before, something like that. They've gone to classes before, so they actually know what they're doing. They know how to train, but they're not actually going and doing it. They don't need a coach again. They need to sort themselves out in terms of their own accountability, in terms of standards, in terms of consistency. So it can be fantastic to get up one day and you, for example, go out and do your 10,000 steps and you go, oh, great, Monday, 10,000 steps, perfect. Then what happens Tuesday? What happens Wednesday? What happens the rest of that week? It would be better to just say, right, let's go for a minimum of 5,000 and do that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and just do that consistently rather than, almost burn yourself out a little bit by doing that. It's like the conversation I was having earlier today with a lady, and we were talking about diet, and she was wanting a meal plan, and I helped her put together a meal plan. I had a little consultation back and forth on that. And then she's kind of come back and said, oh, well, can I try this, this, and this? And yeah, great, do that. But when we've actually came back to it and calculate the macros, it's a thing of, well, actually, what you've come back with is completely different to what you actually need. However, compared to what she's been eating before, it's an improvement. Yes, it's a compromise between what I've given her, which is optimal, and what she was eating at the beginning, which was rubbish. But we've kind of landed on a little bit in the middle. So it means that for the next few weeks, that is still going to be of benefit and better what she's done. It's not completely overhauling a life overnight onto something that she's not going to enjoy necessarily straight away or stick to. Whereas if we can bed things in gradually, one stage at a time on a meal plan, then it's going to be a lot better. So a lot of the time, you don't need your clarity. You'd need some consequences for not following through on what you're wanting to do. So that was our truth section. That was heavy going, but I think that's going to be quite useful to some folks. So moving on to some excuses that I hear. So these are 3 common excuses that I've heard, whether it be on consultation calls, whether it just be general conversations, just in life. So I'm just going to quickly go through them. Try not to drag it out too much as I did with the hard truths. But item 1, I don't have time. Show me your screen time, and I'll show you how much time you've got. Tell me how much Netflix you watch in a night, and I'll show you that you've got time. It's as simple as that. Those are 2 things. Now, I don't lump everyone in with the I don't have time. There are people that I coach that, because when we look at their schedules, they do not have time to be hitting maybe 15,000 steps a day, doing 4 cardio sessions a week, 4 weight sessions a week, something like that. They haven't got that bandwidth. There's a guy that I work with at the minute. He works away a lot. He's got his own business. He's a husband. He's also got 3 young boys to look after. So for me to say to him, you're going to be doing all this cardio, you're going to be doing all these weights and you have to do all these steps a day, there's a lot of flexibility in there. And the way we program that is we do 3 full body workouts per week. You can spread them out, perhaps Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sometimes you need to spread it Monday, Thursday, Sunday, leaving a day or two in between. We say steps, we just have an average. We say as long as we're hitting 8,000 a day, which it kind of does in work anyway, that's perfect. And in terms of the cardio, we put 1 long run in a week, and then we put a tempo run and some interval work midweek. So, or whenever he can fit that in. So there's some basic standards that we've got. He still gets great results off that, but at the same time, he can show up as a husband, father, business owner, and be able to deliver on his service that he does as well in his work. So that is what we do there. In terms of his nutrition, we've got calorie and protein target. We've also got a meal plan, which is a very easy prep that he can follow. We've also got some options for when he's on the road in the van as well. So again, super important. There's a bit of structure. That is like the thing people need. But ultimately, I will always say, come back to your screen time. Come back to what you're watching on Netflix. At the minute, my screen time is minimal. And in terms of Netflix, I couldn't honestly tell you the last thing that I was watching. So because life is pretty full on, pretty busy at the moment. That's why this podcast is last minute, but it's not just last minute, it's slightly later on a Monday than usual. So the other one, I will start when life calms down. Now, it's, for example, for myself, could have been very easy to keep sacking this podcast off, to just go, oh, well, I could miss a Monday, I could come back next Monday, or, it could be the thing of where, in terms of me wanting to double down a little bit more in terms of my fitness and my own training ability, it could be the thing of where I just kind of say, you know what, I'll start in January. I'm busy at the moment. I'm trying to make sure our clients are feeling good, hitting results, everything like that. And it's a little bit chaos. I'll just wait a bit, and that's applied to me very much for this podcast. It took a little while for me to go, you know what, I'm going all in, I'm going to do it right and do it properly. But if you act now, that is going to serve you a lot better, or you might never act. And that is the thing. There's something I believe probably said before. You can either get stuck in and smash it, like the next person I'm going to be talking about, one of my clients. Come board, smash it, or you can do nothing, which is, again, it's your body, your choice, your life. You can do that, but the last thing we want is for you to go backwards. So with that, I'm just not motivated. That is normal, and it's going back to what I was saying on that hard truth front. So motivation isn't step one. Actually doing something will then create a little bit of motivation as well. So it's getting that consistency and setting, as I said before, setting some standards, which is super important. And standards as well is the word that a few of the guests I've had on as well. Obviously, Keith, he was talking about his standards, what he does. Aaron as well, who we had on a couple of weeks back, fantastic again. Standards mentioned, obviously, my coach Billy again, standards. And those are 3 extremely high performers, that sort of word, that sort of phrase, high performers, people that's doing well, people that are doing very well in life, but they're challenging themselves, they're growing, they're ticking the boxes and doing the right things. So I shall leave that one with you. Now, Tomos, one of my clients, who last Sunday did the Cardiff Half Marathon, he got an incredible time. We originally, when we talked back in January, it was a thing of where, I floated this idea to him, 10 months' time, Cardiff Half, could we do it? Oh, not sure. He really kind of wasn't too taken with that, just almost the nerves, thinking, well, how much fitter is he going to get? How much weight is he going to have to lose? So on. The fact is, he'd actually done it. And in fact, it's actually less than 10 months. So he came to me at the back end of January. This was right at the start of October. So this was 8 days ago that he did this. Absolutely incredible. In terms of the time as well, like I say, we kind of thought, 3.5 hours, go in the slow wave, go right at the back. Actually, if it hadn't been for a little bit of cramp, he would have been around 2.5 hours. He did about 2 hours 45, which was absolutely amazing, considering the last couple of miles in terms of heat, things like that. And it was just the thing of a little bit of cramp, which we've all had. Sometimes it isn't your day, sometimes the body says no, but he still got it done. And pretty much 45 minutes quicker than what we'd said, based off the 3.5 hours that we'd talked about a while back. And maybe you could say, when Tomos works full time, he's got a life, he's got friends, social life. He's had holidays. He's seen Oasis a few months back. Very jealous. But, maybe you could say he didn't have the time, work full time, social commitments, holidays, so on. He just got stuck in and started doing it. At the beginning, it was building a few habits, a few changes, but then it's been the thing of he was texting me 5 o'clock in the morning when I was in the gym, being like, "Oh, I've just got the gym. Gym's open." I'm like, "It's fantastic." And he's stuck at that. And then he's got his reward by getting an incredible achievement and inspiring myself, those around him along the way as well. And it has been noticed. It very much probably the most popular post I've had in a long time, because that is where people seeing the incredible work, not just the physical transformation, but also getting that medal, getting that time, and looking really good while he did it. So, a little bit on myself that some of you may know already. Of course, I had a bit of a career switch. So there was a time during lockdown where I was in a call centre job, which I didn't like. And I just walked out one day and never went back. And I had a week just to kind of do a little bit of research, see what was going around. I was encouraged to become a PT off one of my friends who originally helped me my own body transformation. And I wasn't ready for that. Excuse me. I wasn't ready to walk out of a call centre. I wasn't ready to walk out of a full-time job, that for what it was decent money as well. I wasn't ready to just take on a course. And, a lot of PTs, there was a statistic that still goes around now where 80% of folks that get the qualifications for PT within a year sack it off. They don't go back due to the surveys that places like PT Academy and all them other ones have done. They don't go back to it. They just get the qualification, then that's it. Whereas for me, I wasn't ready for that at all. I was very nervous, but I got it done, and that is the proof you can do that. And then 5 years later, we've got a business on the back of it. So it can be done. The thing that I'll also say as well, I believe I touched on the last solo podcast, I think I've touched on this a little bit in the stories as well. My sort of own personal development this year in terms of like starting therapy, something that I should have really done probably a few years ago. I probably should have done a little bit more of that. Had I had the resources as when I was like, 12, 13-year-old, I probably should have been doing something then. But whenever I've started, even this year back in February, I didn't feel ready for that, but I started anyway. Yes, it's difficult to talk about, childhood trauma, failed relationships, the way you see yourself, your own fears and insecurities. Yeah, it's very difficult to do all that. But by this point, as of the 13th of October, 3 months until I turn 30, bloody hell, I'm probably the happiest I've been. I'm probably the most content I've been in terms of everything, in terms of, business, physique, so on. I'm actually feeling pretty good and ready to grow and get a little bit more. In terms of even this podcast, to say again, I waited well over a year before doing this. I should have done it a lot sooner, but the confidence just wasn't quite there. I was a little bit worried of judgment, a little bit of things, those kinds of things that get to you. And now I'm not bothered. I'll do these episodes, even if one person listens to it. Maybe that's one person that found it useful. It doesn't really matter. So, a little bit of a quick fire Q&A. So, as I say, reacting to a few sort of DMs that I get, little bits of things I get on Instagram Q&As, things like that. So, let's just kind of run through them. Again, touching on this again, but it was actually asked yesterday, do I need motivation to start? No, you don't. You need movement. You need action. Get to work. Simple as that. What if I fail? So I failed numerous times. So even April this year, I ended up in an ambulance at the Manchester Marathon. Basically, I'd had what I thought was norovirus. It was a little bit more serious than that. It was actually full-blown stomach infection. I still gave it a go the day of the Manchester Marathon, but when it took 3 hours to get to mile 14, and then not being able to run in a straight line, someone stopping us, and then a family from across the street actually getting all of us and putting us in a seat and getting the medic who was on the motorbike going past. That was kind of game over for me, and unfortunately it was a late night at the hospital till I got up and walked out because I was sick of waiting. But again, that was disappointing because I knew it was there. I'd done an ultramarathon less than a year before that, I'd done 50k, over 31 miles. So I knew I could do it, but it was still a failure. It was still a failure that, in my book, that I document on Instagram. I had all the build-up guys. I'm doing the Manchester Marathon. I'm booked in. Obviously I'd paid for accommodation. I'd paid parking in advance. I'd obviously paid entry, everything I'd paid for. Obviously, got me race day food in for the day. Got all my stuff in. Got all my gels. Everything like that. So a lot of the prep, all the prep had been done. There was no stone turned. It was just a thing of that. Essentially, I failed, and I got my first ever DNF, which is did not finish. So there was no medal, there was no time, there was no nothing, and that was game over. Unfortunately, it was getting looked after by medics, and then obviously, as I say, it was an ambulance and off hospital. Unfortunately, but you've got to try things. It doesn't matter. I could sign up to the 100-mile tomorrow. I probably would. I finish it? I don't know. I don't know if I've got the gas in the tank at the minute to finish 100 miles. But I have a good go, and if I failed, doesn't matter. So what? It's all just data. It's all just feedback. Do you even call it failure? You call it trying. Doesn't matter. Have a good go. That's what I'd always say. There's been plenty of times, even as a I'm still going to be getting back into this. I'm going to keep you posted with it. But in terms of music and being on the stage, there was times where I got feedback that I couldn't sing. Music was shite. Things like that. I got poor grades in terms of what I thought I would achieve in university. I was marked down badly for me compos and things like that. But at the same time, I got in Clash magazine. I got over 100,000 streams on Spotify. Again, is it a complete failure? No. Did I fail in terms of the academic side of things? I didn't fail, but compared to the standards that I wanted of getting a first and not getting that, then yeah, unfortunately, in my book, it was a little bit of a failure there. But again, I've tried. I've done an awful lot more in terms of music than those around us have done, and I'll always be proud of that regardless. So you've got to try, and simple as that. How do I stay consistent? Sometimes it's lowering the entry for it. So rather than saying, right, I'm going to follow what Conrad does, and I'm going to do we're going to do 2 hours of cardio a week. I'm going to do, protein target. I'm going to do my calorie target. I'm going to lift weights 4 times a week. I'm going to go to bed for 8 hours. And you're completely trying to overhaul your life overnight. Don't do that. Just stay consistent with even just one of those things for a few weeks. Just set a standard, set a non-negotiable. Then we can add little bits to that, or you can add little bits to that. Now, a lot of you already know what you need to do. You just don't have accountability. For myself, I have a coach because I want accountability. I want to get coached. I would always be going through that process to make me a better coach. And so I don't have to think about my own training, my own nutrition. I just get what I'm given and I get on with it. And that is a lot of my clients as well. A lot of them are very, very good. You call them athletes now. Obviously Tomos doing that run. Incredible what he's achieved. But again, it's coaching accountability. We've started talking about his plans for next year because, again, it's accountability. It's not that he doesn't know what he's doing. It's accountability that is important. There's a few of my guys. There's a guy the other day, one of my guys, and we've sorted something out that we're locked in for the next 12 months now because, again, it's accountability. It's someone looking over you. He's trained probably as long as I've been alive, just about. But again, it's accountability, it's structure, it's having that support. What if my partner, again, the question is actually, what if my partner doesn't support me? But I'm actually going to expand on that. And what if friends don't support you? If, again, it comes back to changing your environment. Sometimes, relationships can be fixed. Sometimes it might be having that difficult conversation saying, look, I need a few months. I need to lose a bit of weight. I need, will you help me a little bit with meal prep, or will you support me while doing it? Things like that. It's not necessarily making them change their life along with yours, but maybe you can go on that journey together. Maybe if you're both struggling, both a little bit out of shape, but can the other person support? And that goes both ways. Maybe if they support you with the gym and the food, can you maybe support them in their career, or a little bit more in life, showing up for them in that side of things. Same with friends. Sometimes I think friends, it's just saying less of people that bring you down, don't have their own things going on, as I was talking before. sometimes it's just, again, getting yourself some new friends, changing your environments, and that is absolutely the best thing that you can do. But again, if anyone is kind of struggling on the partner front, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, I've a bit of experience there with certain things. So if you are struggling, do drop me a line. So I'd like to try and help you with that. So just to kind of wrap this up, as I appreciate we are getting towards the 40-minute mark, if Thomas can drop 30 kilos and run a half marathon, and I can go from a call centre and to coaching and podcasting, then the bottom line is you're not special, you're not stuck, you're just delaying, and you need to get yourself in gear and get to work. If you do want any help, by all means, my DMs on Instagram are always open. More than happy to just have a conversation. It's not the thing of trying to make you buy anything to sign up for coaching, this, that. I actually do just enjoy helping people at the end of the day. But if you obviously want to be coached, you want to be a client, obviously we can have that conversation as well. Without further ado, I'm going to wrap this one up there. It's been emotional. It's been a bit winged. The notes have been minimal. The crack, I'd say it's been epic, but I don't know. I shall look forward to any feedback you guys have for me. But until the next one, thank you all very much. I'll speak to you very soon.